Coming up on today's episode of the Mental Stealth podcast.
Imagine that 14-year-old girl or boy sat in their bedroom, 4 o'clock in the morning, can't sleep, insomnia, been having panic attacks at school, been off sent at home sick, on antidepressants, parents are worried sick. They get up in the night because they're having a panic attack and they think, oh, I'll distract myself by watching some TikTok or some Instagram. And they're sat there and this moron comes up and says, if you've been diagnosed with OCD, it takes 14 to 17 years to get over it. And they go, hold on a minute, I'm 14 now. I want to be a doctor, I want to be an architect, or I want to be a mechanic. That means I'm going to have to wait till I'm, oh my God, in my early 30s until I can actually start my life. Welcome back to the Mental Stealth podcast with myself, Charles Linden, and
Samuel Thomas. Hello.
Hi, Sam. How you doing?
Hi, Charles. I'm good. How are you?
Yeah, I'm okay. Yeah, and I'm really interested into tonight's topic because look, I'm 58. It wasn't like this when I was a kid. It was a very different world, and as I've said many times before, I had 3 TV channels, and it was a black and white TV to start with. So, this modern world has taken some acclimatization. Let me tell you.
And I mean, I didn't have this when I was a little kid. I think Facebook came in 2004, and so I was born in 1995.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't grow up with this. I was still, I think we've talked about in a previous episode, I think maybe in our last episode, the self-help episode, I grew up climbing trees and building dens and riding my bike and doing all of that stuff. I didn't have a phone until I was, can't remember, I think kids are growing up with phones now. They're being given a phone straight out the womb. You get born and you have a phone. It's kind of crazy.
I thought we'd talk about this. This episode we should really call brain rot, because I think that's what we're talking about here. We're talking about the stuff that infiltrates the subconscious and rewires kids. And it's mostly to do with social media, of course. I mean, we could talk about gaming separately. We can talk about other places that kids go to look for data. What plays into this massively is the fact that kids aren't allowed to be bored anymore. And I think we said that as well in a previous episode. Boredom is a really important factor in a person's individual evolution, but in human evolution, because, necessity breeds invention. Invention comes from boredom and from problem solving. And when all your problems are fed directly into your eyes, ears, nose, mouth, and skin, and all your senses are receiving data that somebody else has designed, there are the 2 issues. A, you're not doing it yourself. And B, what is this stuff they're feeding into you that's creating this brain rot? And it's troubling. I mean, I've got older kids, 24 and 21, so it's not as troubling for me as it is. Although having said that, I mean, they have grown up in that era, but it was the onset of it. I mean, before AI was a thing, as if AI is a thing. I have issues with AI. I don't believe there's AI. I don't believe that AI is sentient. I don't think it ever will be. I think it's always going to be man programmed, even if it goes off on one and starts recreating, and inventing new pathways. It's still not biological. It's not a growing entity. It's certainly not sentient.
No, it's not emotional. No, exactly.
No. So its ability to think and to respond as a human, I think, will always be extremely limited. But having said that, that's not to say that all of this stuff that is happening now isn't reprogramming real biological human brains. And it's extremely troubling, And I mean, obviously we're here to talk about anxiety conditions.
But it all relates though, doesn't it? I mean, it all feeds
100%. Yeah, because when social and physical evolution kind of separated at the beginning of this technological revolution, and that's when it started to happen. When I mean, you're saying it. You're born in 95. You go out and play on your bike, you play in the garden, you build dens, you do all the things that a sort of normal kid would do. And during that time, you're evolving as an individual. You're programming your brain. You're problem solving. You're becoming the complete person that you are today. But kids aren't having that now. And certainly, when I was born in 68, it was even less technological back there. And it was I wasn't encumbered with data. I had to find data if I wanted it, otherwise boredom would
Yeah,
set
of
in, and then
course, of
you
course.
know it really troubles me. But social media, I think, is the thing that troubles me the most. I'll be honest. I don't know how you feel about it.
Well, yeah, absolutely. We've taken the name brain rot from an actual. I was telling you about it. It's an actual. I don't know what to call it. I've got it up here. Here we go. This is how we'll describe. I'll define brain rot. How brain rot is actually defined. So brain rot refers to the perceived cognitive decline or mental fogginess caused by over-consuming low quality short form online content such as TikToks, Reels, and ironically slang heavy absurd viral media. So I think it's it's sort of this thing where kids share random images and videos and short form, but the criteria for it has to be low quality, so it has to be badly made, and it has to be absurd and random, and in some cases offensive or blasphemous. I've seen um and it's I've spoken to kids that I've worked with in school environments, and I've said to them, what is this brain rot thing? What's the point of it? And they say there isn't a point to it. That's the point. It's just it's content for the sake of content, which they share around to their friends or wherever, and it's purely for the purpose of creating something that has no purpose or creation. And so
It's
you
like
kind of
it's like
go,
visual white noise, isn't it? I mean, if
it's complete, it's
it's
white noise,
crazy.
it's digital white noise, and it's a complete. I see it as a sort of a betrayal or a mocking of the brilliance of the human brain.
I agree.
Here
I
we are
agree.
sat with
Mm.
we've all, as we've talked about before on the podcast, especially people with anxiety have incredibly high creative intellects, meaning we have the ability to problem solve beyond our imagination, and we have the ability to create things and invent things and discover things and build things, and it's being used to create low form, low quality media to send to other people for the sake of sending it and consuming it. And that's sort of social media sort of defined there, really, isn't it? It's just a load of people just sending back and forth crap for the sake of
If
it.
I were a conspiracy theorist,
Mm.
and I'm not, I'm somebody who looks at a wide view of the world and tries to, as best I can, navigate that, compile the data that is relevant, and then bring it to some kind of, some sort of kind of theory at least, and then
Yes.
potentially to some kind of fact at the end of it if I can. But a lot of it
Yeah.
doesn't make sense. But I think if I were a conspiracy theorist, I think that the question I would have is this being done on purpose? Is this the dumbing down? Is this being fed to us by, I mean, is this warfare? You got to get to the bottom of it. Is this something that one of our political enemies is somewhere in the world has created to bring our kids to the point where critical thinking and the ability to problem solve has been removed from their brains? This digital dementia kind of theory. Is it that? Because I can't think that anybody, I mean, parents certainly, and I am one, we, my feeling is, I said this to my son yesterday, all parents, good parents, would only want their children to be better than them, to live longer than them, to be happier than them, to be more successful, whatever that means. I don't necessarily mean financially. And for them to live very long and fulfilling lives that they don't regret leaving at the end. They have no regrets or concerns. That's every parent's dream, and that's not what's been fed to them. This is like the reversing of human intellectual evolution, and it's
Mm.
terrifying. And the
Mm.
only answer to that is not to do it, and I don't know how that's going to happen. And with regard to mental illness, in inverted commas, which
Mm.
widely is what the rest of the world could, sort of call what we're talking about, because there is true mental illness in this. We know that anxiety conditions aren't mental illness. We know that they are not. They're not even physical illness. They're disordered fear response. And like I've said many
Yes.
times, fear isn't an emotion. But all of those emotions and all of those physiological responses that these things that could give humans and small children good experiences through are actually being subdued in this. It's almost like they're being told to switch off from reality. And again, it sort of makes you think, well, why? What are they supposed to switch into virtual reality to get experience of the world? And it is not good for mental health in terms of depression, psychoses, and all of those things. But certainly from an anxiety, phobia, obsession, compulsion perspective, it's not setting up the brain to do what it's meant to do, and it's certainly not bringing about um, the strength that is needed to navigate the world. If I'd have been like this when I was a kid, you'd have been screwed. There's no way you'd have got
Yes.
through a school day because it was like a bloody war zone most of the time. Who's fighting who's saying what about who. There were no hurty feelings because if there had been, you'd have been, you'd have killed over in a day.
Well, quite.
Yeah, horrific.
But
But
it's strange, isn't it? And I don't. I've tried to sort of research. I've just tried, as you've been talking. I've been trying to Google. Yeah, who's been generating this sort of material? And from what I can see, it's come from the sort of the Reddit forum realm. People just in
right,
forums sharing things. It seems there's TikTok sort of moving into sort of 2025. It's coming from various TikTokers. There's another thing called Italian brain rot, which is something to do with AI animals in wearing shoes or so. No
what?
idea, Charles. Yeah, it's so beyond.
Mine boggles.
It's so beyond anything that you and I would have grown up with and would have put our time into. I just don't know I don't know what it is that would be remotely appealing to kids. And I've even spoken to the kids that I have spoken to about it, and I've said, why do you consume it if you know that it's not about anything and you know that it's complete rubbish? Why do you consume it? And you get the typical, well, it's just funny, isn't it? It's just funny. And it's like, is
Mm.
it? Is it
Well, it's
funny?
not. No, it's not.
Is it
And,
actually funny?
no, I mean, Charlie shows me something, something sometimes, and he's just, laughing about it. And I can't, I think, yeah, that's kind of funny. And I'd find it funnier if I was younger, perhaps. But I'm not an old
Yeah.
fuddy duddy. That's the thing. I mean, I find things hilariously funny when they are. It's just when they're
Yes.
not. I don't know why people are laughing, and
Yeah.
it's frustrating, yeah, because I want to find it funny. I want to be part of that
No,
group,
totally. I want to get
but
it.
I
I want to
can't
get
be.
it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I think it's troubling to me, though, I think it was the University of Heidelberg, I mentioned it before, did some studies
Yes, you did.
about digital dementia. And I mean, that was troubling enough, the fact that you're reducing your cognitive ability by consuming this stuff. But something that just came to me when you were talking about schools, if you look at the world from the north of the northern hemisphere down to the equator, and then from the equator down,
Yes.
isn't it funny that the most outside activity and the most sort of activity we used to do as kids is done in those equatorial countries, and then north of those, as you start reaching, for example, north of the equator towards the Mediterranean and Spain and Portugal, and you've got obviously southern France and Italy and those countries where the weather is generally good. If you even holiday there, you see a lot more people of all ages out in the streets. They're playing sports, they're on golf clubs, on golf courses, they're playing
Yep.
tennis. And then the
Yep.
further you go north. So there is an aspect of this, I think, that is cultural to an extent, maybe
Mm,
even religious to an extent.
mm.
In the countries that tend to be Catholic, very family based around sort of the north part of the Mediterranean, you get a lot more of this family value type stuff where the kids are expected to behave a certain way and do certain things, and then obviously have meals at certain times. And a lot of the time it's in the street if the weather is good enough. Where that happens, you don't tend to see people walking around vaping. You don't see people sat around on their phones. You don't see kids kind of in groups misbehaving or laughing hysterically about things or breaking things. But yeah, the further north you go in Europe, and and I've got a lot of experience with this, having lived in Germany and France and obviously Britain. Um, it gets worse as you go north, as the weather gets colder, and as the line to do with that's wrapped up in family values and culture and religion breaks apart as you get further north. That whole thing does become worse. There's no doubt. So I think that's
Yeah.
got something to do with it, definitely. Because in those
Yeah.
countries where that strong family bond is there, and if you do wrong, they're going to hold you accountable. Because Mrs. Smith knows Mrs. Jones, and she's going to say, "Hey, do you know that your Billy just did this? Did he really? I'll get him." And gets him by the ear and brings him home. In my
Mm.
day, that was the case because those
Yes.
communities still existed, but those communities have broken apart in much of the world now. So I think that's what we're seeing. I think a lack of respect and responsibility, perhaps, as well as this. They've all become kind of hypnotized into
Yeah.
this sort of common psychosis. Somebody
Mm.
said yesterday on the news that we've got to break free from this international global psychosis. This sort of they're talking about pandemic of psychosis, and I think there is a lot of that. Just generally in all humans. I don't think it's just kids. I think
Mm.
these beliefs, core beliefs, are being broken down. And the thing is, if you don't know what's what, how are you going to survive the world? If you don't know what to say, how to say it, how to remain respectful, or how do you navigate the world safely? You can't basically. It's shutting down speech. It's communication. You can't say anything without fear of reprisal now.
Well, that's it, and it's one of the schools I worked in. I remember we did a session on what was it? Being assertive. That was it. It was assertiveness, teaching assertiveness.
Mm,
And I tried to think, God, I never had a lesson on assertiveness at school. That was something that I just learned by example. I learned that from the way that my teachers spoke to me and the discipline of the relationship between teacher and student, and what that relationship was, the hierarchy of it, the discipline of it. And equally with my parents, there was the way that they spoke to me and the way that they treated me and the way that they brought me up to stand up for myself and to be polite and
mm,
be respectful, but
mm.
also to make sure that I'm never being taken advantage of in various situations. And I found, we were doing this class about assertiveness, and none of the and there are, obviously you're always going to get one or two kids who are like, yeah, I could, no problem, yeah, Billy Big
Yeah.
Bollocks, up they come. But the majority of them just, it was almost this baffling concept. And we did a scenario, and it's a role play of going into a shop and asking if you can order, or in a cafe, can I order this. And these kids just, they crumble apart. They just don't
Tell me
know.
about it.
They don't know what
I've
to
been
do.
with
They're kind
kids that have
of,
refused to do things like that.
yeah, they
Going,
crumble
"Oh,
apart.
no, I say, "Oh, go in and ask for a couple of coffees." "Oh, I can't do that." "No, no,
Yeah.
no, I ca" "What do you mean you can't do it? You're 23. What's wrong with you, man?" They
Yeah.
can't do it. They thought,
No.
"Could you speak to the bank for me?" "What?" I mean, I'm not talking about my son here, by the way, because he is actually pretty
Yeah.
assertive, or my daughter, because they got me as a dad.
I
But
was going to
I've
say,
been
yeah.
with people that have said, "Oh, would you mind just," and you just go, "What are you talking about?" What, you can't go into the bank and ask, or buy some stamps, or it's crazy, but it's true.
Yeah.
It is
Yeah.
absolutely true. That's what they're like. It's frightening. In terms of the social media element of this, there is definitely a
Mm.
programming. I mean, obviously, we've both watched the documentary, the Manosphere documentary, and I mean,
Yeah.
there's a lot you could say about that, and there's been a lot of repercussions from it. We could sit and analyze that all night, and it's
Yes.
from both directions. It's absolutely ridiculous because again, it just shouldn't exist. It's not a conversation that should be had. There are assumptions about our roles as equal genders in this world, and so that there shouldn't have to be a conversation about it. It should be that you are brought up to be respectful and to understand people's views and wishes, and regardless of what those are, to behave in a way that either doesn't question it at all, or gives rise to you saying, how would you prefer to be called, or what, would you like me to, do you want me to open doors for you? Do you find it offensive that I do that, or that I offer to pay, or that, I
Mm,
walk on the outside of the pavement? But now, you see, you can't even have that conversation because you're so worried about, offending people. And social media is so full of those, those absolute sort of, I'm trying to think how to put it succinctly, but kids don't get answers from social media. They just get more and more questions. And I,
yes.
and I see it every day in my clients, my young clients especially. They
Mm,
just don't know which way to turn, and it's bloody
no.
awful. It's
Yeah.
awful.
I think
Um,
should we talk about some of the
yeah, go on.
obviously we're talking about social media, and obviously we've talked a lot about kids, but we did want to come on here and talk about some of the interactions and engagements that we've had on social media,
As
and
adults,
we as a podcast and as the Linden Method. It's been quite interesting, hasn't it? Some of the interactions that we've had and some of the responses we've had, and some of the, I don't know what to call them, head butting. There's been a bit of
yeah,
head butting with a lot of
yeah, yeah.
people, and we're sort of on the daily sending back and forth messages and links to various videos or posts that we come across on social media, and
People
it's
don't like being called out on their bullshit, though, do they?
well, no, not at all, and to the point where they'll go right on the back foot and become the victim. And actually, that's the most exposing play that they can make of all, as far as I'm concerned. As soon as someone goes on the back foot and goes, "Oh, well, you don't have to be so rude," and actually, we're all just trying to help, and it's like, well, if you genuinely had something that was useful and
Mm,
helpful,
mm.
you wouldn't be responding with that.
No,
You just wouldn't. You
absolutely
wouldn't
right.
back down.
Absolutely
You
right.
just wouldn't. We wouldn't respond like that. If so, some of the honestly, Charles. I mean, let's talk quickly about trending videos on TikTok and all of this sort of stuff. The amount of stuff that I've seen in the past week alone, of therapists and psychologists doing these weird videos where they look to camera and they say, there was one I saw the other day, three things that you don't know that I'm thinking as a therapist. That was it. Number one, you will never know how I'm truly feeling because I will never tell you. And I thought, what? And it's, if you ask me how I am, and all of a sudden the video should have it sort of transitions into this, all these graphics of, rain falling and sad music. And, even if I'm having the worst time and I've got all these things floating around my head and all these horrible thoughts, you'll never know that because I'll just tell you that I'm fine. And I think, okay,
Yeah.
um,
And
right.
that has value. How?
Yeah. Why
Exactly.
does, yeah, exactly. All of this. And then,
It's psychobabble.
it's basically just therapists and psychologists trying to, I don't know, normalize the fact that they don't have the answers to any of this
Mm,
stuff.
mm.
That was it. One of them said, "Oh, I don't always have the answers, but I'll always tell you. Instead of telling you I don't know, I'll always tell you, oh, I need to think. I need to think further on that." And then it's a sort of an aside to the camera. What that basically means, guys, is that I need to go and talk to my supervisor because I don't know what you just said.
Do
And
you
it
know,
made me think,
oh, Sam, it's infuriating.
the amount of times that I've had clients and you've had clients and we've had clients who will tell us the most. It's hilarious. They'll tell you the most, what they believe to be the most bizarre, the most out of reality thing ever, and we can very easily sit here and go, "Oh yeah, no, that's just this."
Yeah,
No,
quite.
that's not
Yeah,
that's not anything that we need to go and, I don't need to go and consult the DSM about what you've just said. I don't need to give you a ring and say, Charles, this client's just told me that they believe they've got 7 arms. What do I say?
yeah,
It's complete madness,
it is. It's because they don't know. I mean, this is the
and
problem.
they don't
You know,
know.
they have no knowledge, which, and the thing is, they dress it. They've spent so long protecting themselves with accreditations and insurances and belonging to particular bodies that because none of them know, in those organizations
Mm.
or bodies, then there's a protection mechanism in there. Oh, but it's evidence based. It's the gold standard. What are you talking about? So I'll tell you something I heard the other day that was really, really interesting. I was just going to give you an example of something that's used a lot in social media, and you'll know it straight away. It's the
Yeah,
one that
yeah, yeah,
says, here's something that doctors will never tell you.
yeah.
And you
Of
go,
course.
oh,
Oh, what is
right at the
this?
start of this, it's like, oh, and then it
Yeah.
goes, if you add an egg to chocolate powder and a spoonful of honey and whisk it and put it in the fridge, it makes the most delicious gluten-free brownie. And you go, no, you're right. No doctor's ever told me that because a doctor isn't a fucking cook. That's why.
It's just clickbait, though, isn't it? It's clickbait.
But that is exactly what it is, though, but it's that ludicrous, though. That it is
Yeah.
literally that. In fact, that one was almost verbatim the script I heard. Here's
Wow.
something that doctors won't tell you. If you stand on your foot and da da da, this happens. And it'll be something related to some meridian or Tai Chi or something. And you go, no, you're absolutely right. No doctor would ever tell me that because they're a bloody medic. You just can't believe that they use this clickbait in the way that they do and aren't
Mm.
embarrassed to use it. I'd be ashamed of putting that
Yeah.
out.
The the lack of integrity
It's
really
shocking.
is baffling. But
Shocking.
my overall point with these videos, and we can have a laugh and a joke about it, and we can sit here and go, God, aren't they ridiculous? But actually, I try and put myself from the perspective of someone who used to have anxiety, and I think to myself, well, if I'd come across a video like that, there was another one. It was another big trend. I was seeing all these videos. What your therapist here's a list of 5 things that your therapist notices or takes note of when you walk in the room.
You
And
showed
it
me
was
that one.
basic.
Yeah.
I think I sent you that one,
Yeah,
and
you
it was
did.
like, number 1, the way you sit on the chair. Number 2, the way you answer the question, how are you? Number 3, whether you smile during the session, and all of this sort of stuff. And I think to myself, well, that's all just complete bollocks. And to try and suggest that any of those answers could actually present you with usable information is complete rubbish.
It is.
But equally, as an anxiety sufferer, you are going to see that.
Yes.
And the next time you go to one of your therapy sessions, your gold standard therapy sessions, you're going to be terrified. You're going to be sat there going,
Yeah.
right, how the fuck should I be sat? Should I?
Sitting on your hands,
Do
not
you know what I mean?
smiling. Yeah.
How many times have I smiled in this session? When they asked me how I was, how did I answer? Did I tell them that I was fine? But did I mean fine? I probably should have said I'm good. But if I said I'm good, they're going to think that I'm delusional. Oh
Unbelievable.
God. And it's just you're just generating fear completely unnecessarily for the sake of what? For the sake of getting people to click on your video and watch
Correct.
your channel.
That's all it is. It is. Because I am better than the next, Listen to me because I know more than. I mean, I think. We had a conversation earlier today about some OCD videos that we were watching, and I just thought it was fascinating.
Yes.
I
Yeah.
mean, the joke of it all is that literally. I mean, we watched dozens of them,
Yeah.
and the joke of it all is that literally not one of them was recovered from OCD. But moreover, the reason for that is because they know nothing about OCD, and it's abundantly apparent. And I mean, there was a doctor I was watching earlier, and I didn't tell you about this one. There was a doctor, Doctor So and So from America. They're always called Doctor Joe.
Yeah.
So it was Dr. Joe or somebody from America talking about how he's an OCD specialist, and
Yes.
then went on to describe what OCD was by starting by saying it's a serious mental health issue. It's it's something that you'll never recover from. You can just learn to manage and cope with. And I'm sitting there thinking, and this is a
Honestly.
doctor, and this is a doctor. What? I didn't even want to listen to the guy, and he sat there almost in a white coat with a stethoscope, to give himself credibility. It's an
Jesus.
absolute joke. But I mean, what I wanted to say for the benefit of the people listening to this, really,
Yes.
aside from talking about social media and how it's used, to, I believe, manipulate kids' belief systems and to channel them, and probably to turn them into, lifelong purchases of whatever somebody might want to sell to them, whether even if that is a utility or tax or a lifestyle.
Yes.
And I think for adults as well, I think that, there's an element of that. But what I was going to say that I think is really important to anxiety recovery, and to sufferers in particular, is that, look, you could talk to 1,000 people and get a different take on what I'm about to say. Um, but the core truth about anxiety, and that includes anything that comes under that umbrella, it isn't contained in the brain, so it's not, certainly not mental illness, and it's not a brain disorder. It's not associated to clinical depression or psychosis or brain injury or degenerative disease, as a lot of people would have you believe, that it's something you've got to learn to live with the rest of your life. It's not it's not a sort of terminal diagnosis. It is a disorder like being unfit or overweight. And anybody who can't sit you down and in 10 minutes explain to you exactly what it is, and from that description, you could then take the very description itself and take it to any ist in any university. So whether it's a neurologist or a gastroenterologist or a a psychophysiologist or a physiologist or a biologist or any other ist in a university, that packet of information that I could give you, and Sam could certainly give you quite quickly, but it's got to be it's got to be sort of in the context of recovery.
Mm.
You took that to any of those learned people, they would not find fault with it. But if you took CBT, DBT, NLP, EFT, EMDR, tree hugging, relaxation, whatever it is that you're being served up in these very expensive sessions that either come to you on a paid basis or on a free basis through some kind of thing like the NHS,
Yes.
you cannot in any way apply that science to any of those things, and they'll marry up. They won't. Why? Because they're unassociated to the conditions we're talking about. And if you've got an anxiety condition, a disorder of any type, whether it's OCD or Puro, and you want to get rid of it, there is one solution. And I'm not saying that that's our program that we, obviously help people with. I'm saying it's the process contained within that program.
Mm.
Anything else that you're told, you're being lied to. It's as simple as that. And this isn't me saying it. It isn't Sam saying it. This is human evolution. This is millennia of biological evolution saying this.
Yes.
And it is
Yep.
either ignored, or alternatively, it's being hidden away from you for commercial gain and nothing else. So whether it's some idiot sat there saying OCD can't be cured, but if you buy my handbook, it'll make you feel a bit better by Tuesday, or if it's a doctor or a psychologist or anybody else, they are not telling you the truth. And that's a
No,
very
no, no.
polite way of saying that they're lying to you. They're lying to you.
They yes, 100% agree. And I think, and also they're being quite, a lot of these people are being quite sneaky about it, because you, and again, we've sent various videos and posts back and forth, but a lot of these posts will be, oh, stop managing your anxiety. You don't just have to learn to manage. And you sort of go, oh, okay, yeah, great. And you click on it. And of course, it's, you do a bit of reading, and actually you go, well, it is managing it, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because then it's like, it's sort of, you've got like a cover photo of, oh, don't just manage your OCD, eradicate it. And then you click onto the next slide and it will say something like, now, the intrusive thoughts will always be there, but the point is you don't have to take notice of them. And it's like, well, that's not recovery, is it? That's like saying, oh, I've broken my leg, but the way I'm going to recover is I'm just going to ignore the fact that it's broken, and I'm just going to keep walking on it. It's complete. That's not recovery. That is not recovery. Or it's like an alcoholic saying, oh, I've recovered from alcoholism, but I still keep beers in the fridge and I have them every Sunday. It's absolutely, but it's misleading, because it makes people go, oh, this one's different. This one is different. This one's actually tapping into something different. But then it isn't. And actually then you keep flicking across, and it's all just, again, it's just exposure therapy, or it's CBT, or whatever it is.
But Sam, isn't this the kind of thing that they're calling psychosis generally? Isn't this the thing that they're saying?
Apparently so.
Because saying this, but actually you mean this, means that you what? First of all, you don't know. For example, I'll tell you one thing that I saw the other day that was really interesting to me. It was somebody, I won't say who it was, but it was a politician in America that
Right.
was saying, we deal in facts. We only deal in things that are real. We only, and we are telling you that these are things that are factual, and all of that over there is wrong. And, freedom of speech, blah, 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 blah. And then right at the end, he pinned on, and may God be my witness. I will blah, 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 blah. Right. And you just go, you've just said all of this. And then you've pinned on, may God be my witness. Because no matter what anybody says, there are facts, there are theories, there is belief. Obviously, there's faith and belief.
There's faith, yes.
And then there's the end point, which, so from between fact and total fiction, there are stages. But
Yes.
fact's where you want to be if you can be. Now, if you're giving somebody total confidence in your ability to be factual, scientific, analytical, and to come to conclusions that are going to be absolutely provable, you don't want to pin some faith on the end of it, because a lot of people at that point, you'll have lost them at that point, because they'll just go, well, hold on a minute, he sounded all right until he said he wanted me to believe in something that there's no evidence for. So
Yes.
how much more of the stuff that he said wasn't real or true? Because that's the way my brain works. Something's either completely provable and real, or it's not. And when it's in the realms of not, it is theory at best. And the problem is, all of these people that you're talking about and that we're talking about on social media, at best, it's theory. But what's more troubling is they're building trust mechanisms based on fear, based on fear of loss, and a lot of FOMO in this, to sell you something, and it's what's mind-blowingly evil is what I call it. And look at how many people this week have been to you and I when we've commented on things and said things and said, oh, how disgraceful are you? Oh my God, you can't say that because, you're lying, or you're manipulating truth. You can't. No, we're telling the truth. Just because it's not the truth that you wanted. Yeah. Not because it's the truth that you don't want people to know about doesn't make it less true. And we've had a couple of attacks this week from people who've really tried to undermine us by saying, well, you're lying. What you're saying isn't true. It's fabrication. And you have to stick to your guns and say, well, here's the evidence. And then they either go silent or they block you.
See, it's the same thing as when people, oh, well, you don't have to be so aggressive about it. And it's like, well, it's not aggression. First of all, it's passion, and actually, there was one particular post where the response back to us was, oh, well, if you are a professional, then you should be responding respectfully on such a public platform. Basically, in other words, God, how dare you put off my customers? by in other words, basically,
that's exactly what it is. Yeah,
that's exactly what it is. But also, I'm sorry, but this particular post had made a claim, and as I've said before, I used to suffer with eating disorder, and I told you before, and I've told the podcast that I came across a post years and years ago that said, oh, it takes a minimum of 8 years to recover from an eating disorder, which is just complete bollocks and dangerous rhetoric. And I came across a similar post that had a very similar piece of information, and it said something like, it can take between 14 and 17 years to get a successful OCD diagnosis. And I messaged and I said, I put a comment.
You sure that wasn't seconds?
Well, there you go. Exactly. 14 to 17 years, nearly 2 decades for someone to tell you.
To?
You've got anxiety, unbelievable. But I commented and I said, it's actually quite sickening that you're peddling that, because somebody reading that who has anxiety going 14 to 17 years, that's detrimental and that's dangerous. And that's why we respond to these people and say, can you hear yourself? Who do you think? Where do you think? And then she came back, oh, but it's in the official this and the official that, and that's what the so-and-so says about it. And I'm like, yeah, but use your own brain for a second.
Yeah.
And think to yourself, yeah, but where's that number been plucked from?
It's
14 to 7. Who woke up one day? Which genius woke up one day and went, takes 17 years. It's 17, guys. I know we said 13 in the meeting yesterday, but I'm telling you, it's 14 to 17. I've had a
It's
premonition.
it's mind blowing.
It's unbelievable, and it's complete, and that's complete rubbish. So anyone listening to this, it doesn't take 14 to, as Charles said, it takes 10 seconds. It takes 10 seconds.
Yeah, I mean, I can very often diagnose people just by having a conversation unassociated with. I mean,
With anxiety.
yeah,
Absolutely.
you just
Absolutely. All the
you
time.
just know. I mean,
All
and the
the
thing is,
time.
it's and what is even more frustrating about that, and there is so much stuff about OCD at the moment on social media, is
It's
that
huge, isn't it? Massive.
massive. It's crazy. It's as if everybody's suddenly become OCD obsessed, which
Yeah.
is kind of,
Which is ironic.
yeah, more than ironic. It's lunatic. It's like OCD is the new autism,
Yes.
brown is the new black kind of thing.
Yes.
What they're saying is that, the new trend is that everybody's going to have OCD. If you tidy your bedroom too much, you've got OCD. That's not what it is, and moreover, OCD is a very specific thing, but it isn't separate to anxiety, phobias, compulsion. It, and I've said this many, many times. If you have any form of anxiety condition, you have OCD. It's just that I
Yes.
wouldn't call it OCD, and neither would you. You know, to a large extent, I'd go as far as to saying that OCD doesn't exist. But I would also add to that puro doesn't exist, panic disorder doesn't exist, emetophobia doesn't exist, agoraphobia, didascalinophobia. You think of all the phobias, they don't exist.
Monophobia. Yep. Yep. Yep.
Monophobia,
Yep.
eating disorders, self-harm, postnatal anxiety, health anxiety, they don't exist. They're not separate disorders. They're not a thing. They're
Mm.
part of a whole. And if I was being really pedantic about it and really psychophysiological about it, I'd say that they are all OCD.
Yes.
So you can't, have OCD and panic disorder and have treatment for panic disorder and OCD separately, because because the DSM suddenly says so, is some kind of psychiatric disorder associated with disassociation or
Mm.
derealization, depersonalization. And again, I come to those, you've got depersonalization disorder. What? No, it's not a disorder. It's a feature of the core
It's a manifestation.
mechanism. Yeah,
Yes. It's a
but
symptom.
you see, they want to make so much money from all these different books they can write, because they'll write one
Of
about this and one
course.
about this and one about this, and then they want to get different drugs, different treatment methodologies, and it's all in an attempt to overcomplicate it so that everybody's bamboozled by the babble and the nonsense. So they just go, oh yeah, that psychologist knows exactly what he's talking about. And I've
Mm.
yet to meet a psychologist that knows what the hell they're talking about, quite honestly,
Mm.
with regard to anxiety conditions. I've sat with thousands of them. Most of them just sit there and go, oh, I don't know, didn't learn that. It's crazy. Why haven't they learned it? Because they shouldn't be in charge of it. It's as simple as that. And
Well,
it's,
absolutely. And
oh,
I found another video the other day of a guy. It's and like you said, there's a lot of OCD stuff at the moment.
mm,
Sort of OCD has kind of taken the spotlight, and like you said, it's almost become fashionable,
yeah,
trendy,
yeah,
a little bit trendy. Oh, don't worry about that. It's just my OCD. Oh,
yeah, yeah.
and there's a couple of videos I want to talk about. One, this guy, he was talking about how he was a very earnest, guys, I've just been diagnosed with OCD, and it's tough because I've already been diagnosed with panic disorder and anxiety. And guys, it's very complicated. Obviously for anxiety, I have to be on a very specific medication, but now for OCD, I have to be on another specific medication. And I'm already on this therapy for anxiety, but I need to be on this therapy for OCD. And I'm sat there thinking, oh mate, you don't need to be on any of that stuff for any of it. And actually this is all at your detriment. But of course, he doesn't know that. He's just a guy who's going, I really want to recover. The other video was this again. It's amazing, isn't it amazing, Charles, how many of these therapists, the people in charge of helping people, are probably the most anxious people I've met
Mm,
and come across.
mm,
And you've got this therapist on there, this OCD specialist on there, and she's saying, well, guys, when I the way that I deal with my OCD, I I just treat it like it's a normal thing, and I just tell my friends, "Look, we're just going to have to accommodate it sometimes." And then she does examples of, "Oh, do you want to come round and tidy my entire house and rearrange my entire wardrobe? It's just my OCD, but come round and we can make a day of it." And you just sort of
And she's
think,
a
right? So,
therapist.
and she's a therapist. So what the hell are
Whoa.
her? What are her sessions? What happens in her sessions?
Well, tidying sounds like, or
It
maybe,
looks like tidying, or
stacking
yeah,
things, or I don't know. It's
absolutely, and
that's
doing.
lunacy.
It's absolutely insane, and yeah,
The
yeah, it
selfishness is unbelievable.
yeah, and but it also it makes me think that in all of our sessions, we never once talk about. We don't go into, oh, so how was your week, and or well, obviously we ask that question generally, how was your week, but we don't ask it in the way of like, right, tell us, let's dive into
Mm.
what OCD you did this week. What was the most obsessive thing you obsessed about this week? We don't do that. And yet these therapists, that's what they spend hour-long sessions doing. And I know this because I had those sessions.
Yeah,
I
me
remember
too.
having a session. I remember, and yeah, absolutely. I remember having a session where sitting there and I was asked, right, tell me what would you say is the thing that you're most afraid of? What's the most obsessive thing? Oh, well, germs everywhere. Right. Okay. And then we would just talk about it, and we would, right, give me examples of when you've found yourself in a position where it's, where the voices in your head are really loud, and you can't stop yourself from wanting to wash your hands, and this and this and this and this and this. And I remember sort of even again sitting there thinking, why are we talking about that? Why is this relevant? Why is this actually
Mm.
important to be talking
Mm.
about how many times I've thought about washing my hands today? Or what's the relevance of it?
It's what
It's
they're
not.
taught to do, though, isn't it? I mean, it's as simple as that. There was that
Yeah.
woman that was having a go at us this week that was saying, trying to espouse the effectiveness of exposure therapy. And I mean,
Yes.
there is
Yes.
nothing more damaging to an
Oh, it's
anxious
horrible.
person than exposure therapy.
It's
It's
horrendous.
we talk about all these therapies, and we try to, we're sensitive to the fact that people have spent a lot of money training to do them. I absolutely understand that some
Yeah.
people
Of
don't
course.
understand that they're not what they think they are.
Yes.
There's an ignorance obviously to that, and they've been coerced into becoming. I mean, somebody was offering a therapy, OCD therapy course the other day. I saw
Yes. You
on,
sent that to me. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
and OCD therapy course. I mean, what are you talking about? It's a nonsense. But people do get coerced. So I sympathise with people like you and I used to be, that get sucked into these belief systems. And I also sympathise with the people who've been trained and spent a lot of money and time training, often to a professional level, even
Mm.
to doctorate level, in things that don't actually exist. If they
And
have done it in
they're well
ignorance,
intentioned, and yeah.
yeah, 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 yeah. And if it is genuinely done because they ain't that bright, then then I think, well, okay, not great, really not great. That but if they are intelligent people who genuinely have the well-being of humans, at heart, and want to do the right thing by people, then it's a never-ending journey of discovery. You've got to be prepared to learn constantly and find those things that actually work and present them. But what floors me are even doctors of psychology, professors, organizations like, voluntary organizations and charities that are set up to sound like they're an authority on these things. And the people that run them suffer. The people that
Mm.
work in them suffer. They offer no services that are giving people hope, in any way whatsoever. What they're doing is just teaching people to tread water ultimately, and it really sticks in my craw. I find it really, really difficult to have a
Yes.
conversation with somebody who is trying to tell me that I'm doing wrong by saying, well, actually, we cure people and here is the evidence. But, both physiological evidence, measurable evidence, but also human evidence in thousands of
Mm.
people.
Mm.
And they turn around and go, well, that's not evidence though, is it? Where's your peer reviewed paper? Where's your clinical trial? Yeah, like that's evidence. I mean, that is the evidence of no evidence as far as I'm concerned, because I've never seen a clinical trial or any kind of peer-reviewed paper that bears any resemblance to the actual science of these disorders. So why would I want that thing that gives me literally no relevance? I
And
wouldn't. Of course, I
you
wouldn't.
did clinical trials for the NHS, didn't you, Charles?
Yeah,
And it was
they weren't clinical as such, though, Sam. The problem is, sorry to cut you off, but yeah, I mean,
no, please.
the problem is when you're talking about an educational program of coaching. So you're not saying to people, "Well, how did you feel this week?" or "What did you write down
Yes.
about this?"
Yeah.
What you're doing is you're saying to people, and you're not certainly not doing that thing. Well, how did it make you? You're not putting the onus back on the sufferer. With coaching, it's very different. You are saying, if you run up and down this field 30 times a week for the next 6 weeks, you're going to get fitter. If you absorb this information and keep absorbing it until you know it off pat, you're going to gain knowledge and pass the exam. Coaching is about saying these are the specific steps you take to bring about the physiological and therefore mental changes that are going to enable you to harbor knowledge in your brain and regurgitate it on demand, or to improve your physical attributes in a way that means that you can now run a marathon instead of just
Yes.
being able to climb the stairs, before getting out of breath. So it's a training model. To test that, all you can do is get X number of people, put them through the process, and see how they are at the end of it. And I'll give you a common example of this: geography GCSE, or maths
Mhm.
GCSE, or
Mhm.
physics GCSE. Does it need a clinical trial? You're changing their brains. Can you clinically trial the process that leads them from junior school to passing their GCSE? No, you can't. What you can do is give them all the information, make sure they know how to utilize that information, store that information. And at the final stage, you say, how much of that information did you take on and store? And 30 years later, you can pretty much ask them the same questions and they'll get the same answers because they've ingrained it into their psyche.
Yes.
You can't test that any other way than passing an exam. So you can't clinically trial a process that changes the way your physical self responds to threat signals. You can't. All you can do is take 60 people like we did. You give them the process, you give them 3 weeks, and you say, in 3 weeks' time, we're gonna measure how compliant you've been to this process. And when you come out at the other end, we're going to measure the difference between you at the start and you at the end. And what happened with
Yes.
our trials was that they did the program and it was completely self moderated, if you want to call it that. And some were compliant, some weren't compliant or as compliant. Some didn't do it at all. I'll be honest. There were 3 that just didn't even look at it out of the 61, I think it was. But they came in and they were measured at GAD-7, which is the standard within healthcare to measure anxiety levels. And they came in, I think it was 18.24, which was out of 21, which was pretty anxious in various formats, OCD, panic disorder, agoraphobia. And at the end of it, they were measured again. And their average score across all of these people that were remaining was 2.84. I think there were 3 that we could say probably didn't do it at all. Some were less compliant, some were more compliant. But the
Yes.
outcome was that there was a drop from severe to normal, totally normal
Mm.
as an
Yep.
average improvement. If you take CBT or any of those, sort of accepted treatment methodologies that are called the gold standard in evidence-based practice, the truth is, the absolute truth, and it's measurable, is that it does not act on the cause of a fear disorder, of anxiety, panic attacks,
Mhm.
agoraphobia. It only deals with the superficial coping mechanisms associated with that disorder. And like you said earlier, you don't want somebody to teach you, to drive a car and then you're handed a car without wheels on. In order to drive it, you got it's pointless. So if you want to recover from these conditions, there is a set process that you have to do that causes your brain and body to make adjustments that gets rid of the disorder. And the beauty of it is that once got rid of, it doesn't come back because there's like a wall built in your subconscious mind that
That's
prevents
it.
you ever falling back into disorder. If any of these
Yes.
people on social media want to contest that in a court of law or anywhere else in a public forum with a bank of the most educated physiologists and psychologists and endocrinologists, I'm happy to do that. I don't need to, though, because it's like saying black is white. You just got to accept it. You've
Yes.
got to accept that they're not the same. Because the data leads you to that conclusion in every case with 100%
Mm.
efficacy. Sorry, I've
Yes.
gone on and on there, but so these
No,
people
that's
who
really
attack us,
useful.
they need to keep away. They need to keep away and shut up because they're silly.
Yes.
It's as simple as that. And I know that sounds abrupt and harsh, but it is
No,
silliness
but I don't
because
think it is. I don't think it is, Charles. And I think this is what I had this bug with, that this there were a couple of people who kind of came back and said, "Oh, you don't have to be so aggressive." And it's like, well, I'm not. It's not about. I'm not. I don't think I was. We weren't being aggressive, by the
not at
way.
all, not at
It
all,
weren't being
not
aggressive.
at
We
all.
were being very passionate, of course, and we were being very. We were making a very, very clear point. So, aggression again. I think. I mean, we can talk about this forever, but we're far too. We've all become far too sensitive. There was no aggression; it was passion, and the reason why there is passion, the reason why that we say these things as loudly as we do and as consistently as we do, is because we know how detrimental and dangerous it is for sufferers to come across these pages and to come across these accounts and to watch these videos and to watch some idiot stood there going, guys, if you want to stop a panic attack, you need to put your hand here and do this, because we need to disarm your vagus nerve because your vagus nerve has been disrupted and that's what's caused your panic attack. No, it hasn't. For God's sake.
Yeah.
But people are going to do it, and people are going to do it. Like I did it, you did it. I spoke about in the last episode how I went. I remember it was an hour-long walk, and I spent the whole walk walking around smiling because someone online had said, smile more because it counteracts anxiety. And I walked around like this, doing this weird kind of smile. And did it do anything? Of course it didn't. But did I convince myself, at the end of the walk, yeah, I do feel a bit better. Yeah, wow, it's working. Of course it wasn't. But people are going to come across these videos and see this information and take it as read. And especially when you've got these therapists who have millions of followers on Instagram and TikTok and who have all of these videos and have verified this and verified that, and they've written books and they've got their own podcasts and all of this sort of stuff. Of course they're going to buy into it and they're going to believe it.
Yeah.
And it's deplorable. So in response to that person putting that post out about the 14 to 17 years to get an OCD diagnosis, I wasn't being aggressive. I was being passionate. And the reason I'm being passionate is because use your brain. What are you talking about 14 to 17 years? Think for yourself. Don't just rely on, that's what the DSM says, or that's what this says, or that's what that medical body says. Use your own brain, use your own thought process, and think to yourself, how is that logical? Where's that been plucked from? And based on what? What is that based upon?
Absolutely right. And in addition to that, do you have no responsibility for your words? Do you feel
Exactly.
Imagine that 13-year-old kid sat in his bedroom on his laptop on his own at 4:00 in the morning, and he comes across that video and he's been told the day before. Let's go worst case scenario with this, because there are a million different scenarios that you could apply this to that would be just as catastrophic.
It's always worst case. Yeah,
absolutely.
It's always worst case in anxiety sufferers.
I've actually been party to things like this, and I'll give you an example in a second. Imagine that 14-year-old girl or boy sat in their bedroom, 4:00 in the morning, can't sleep, insomnia, been having panic attacks at school, been sent at home sick, on antidepressants, parents are worried sick, and they get up in the night because they're having a panic attack and they think, I'll distract myself by watching some TikTok or some Instagram. And they're sat there and this moron comes up and says, if you've been diagnosed with OCD, it takes 14 to 17 years to get over it. And they go, hold on a minute, I'm 14 now. I want to, I want to be a doctor, or I want to be an architect, or I want to be a mechanic. That means I'm going to have to wait till I'm, oh my God, in my early 30s until I can actually start my life, and oh my God, I don't think I can face that. I can't face that much pain. I've been through enough already, and it's only been a month and a half. The pros, if a person posts something so absolutely diabolical, do they have no belief that somebody vulnerable might see it and react? And I said, I was going to tell you something, and I will tell you something.
Yeah, please.
We had a young client come to the retreat, and we were in two minds about whether for her to come or not, because she was just 18 years old, which was the benchmark. The 18 was the line that we didn't usually go under. She was just 18. She was quite immature because she'd been quite mollycoddle.
Okay.
But parentally, and so she was quite dependent. But the mum had managed to get her there, and she was. But it wasn't easy. It was really difficult to get her there.
Did she come by? Did she come by herself or did she come with her
She came with her
parents?
mum. She came with her
Right.
mum.
Okay.
And they had
Okay.
a double room and they shared the room. And it was the first day. And she was in bits when she arrived. And Beth had a word with her and Jackie had a word with her. I had a word with her and said, look, at the end of the day, I might not look like you, but I am the recovered version of you.
Yes.
So
Sure.
understand that, yeah, you're female, I'm male. I'm at the time it was about 50 and you're 18. You've got a different life experience, but ultimately we both I have experienced what you're experiencing. And so I'm the recovered version of you. There's nothing you can say to me that would shock me. There's nothing you could say to me that would worry me or concern me because I know what you are because I was you. It was that
Yes.
kind of conversation,
Sure.
as reassuring as you can be and then Beth had a word.
Absolutely.
She was happy to stay. She was happy to be there. So she went through the first day really, really well. And then she had quite a bad night because it was her first night in a strange place, but she had her mum with her. So she did come down about 11 o'clock and said, look, I feel a bit panicky. And we had a bit of a word with her and she was fine and went back to bed. Anyway, next day she got up and she got up the next morning, came down to breakfast and she was quite changed, I have to say. She was different, very different. And her mum had said, when she went to sleep, she stayed asleep and she's got up this morning and, she hasn't started her rituals. She hasn't done any of her rituals.
Wow.
She's been in the bathroom. She's done none of the touching. She hasn't checked the doorknobs. Blah 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 blah. And I said, brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. I said, but don't expect miracles, but that's a great start,
It will
and
take
it's
a bit.
very
Yes.
encouraging. But let's move forward and give her the full experience. Anyway, mid afternoon, she came to me and she put her arms around me. We just came out of lunch and she went, oh my God, Charles, thank you for this. Thank you for inventing this. I said, it's what we come to. Thank you, but it's we know you can recover. It's not a surprise to us when people feel well or feel better on day one, and it's lovely that I can see you like this. And she said, "I nearly didn't
Yeah,
come."
of
I said, "I know
course.
you didn't." Anyway, cut long story short, she went off for the afternoon break, and her mum came rushing down the stairs and said, "Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God!" I said, "What's happened?" She's been on social media." And I said, "Oh," she said, "Yeah." She posted to her group that she was at the retreat and that she was feeling so much better. It was absolutely wonderful. But I didn't know she'd done this. I've just been up to the room, and she was just about to do something.
Oh,
Basically, she was an ex self harmer, so she used to scratch herself. I mean,
yeah.
it was superficial stuff, but it was enough to give her a little bit of a tweak. And
Yeah.
so she'd gone back to the room and her mum had walked in and said, what the hell are you doing? And she told the story. And basically what it was is she put it on social media and a stalker type psychopath, basically, who was one of the other specialists got it in his head that he thought it was disgusting that she'd come to our retreat and that she should be told why she shouldn't be at our retreat. And the message I saw was nothing short of abusive, defamatory, just vile in every way you can imagine, Sam, and
Oh, Jesus.
designed to do exactly what he
What it did.
wanted her to do. Yeah,
Yeah.
designed exactly to be. It was like Hannibal Lecter by proxy. It was like
Yes.
it was really bad intent, horrific intent.
Total sabotage of something. Yeah.
Yes, by a doctor of psychology,
Oh,
right?
my God.
There is nothing you can forgive in that. Nothing
No,
at
no, no.
all. There
No,
is no
no.
forgiveness.
No, there isn't.
We talked her down. We got her back on track. We really worked with her, and she left feeling very happy. And she made a complete recovery very quickly. Now she was a girl that had previously done self harm, but that wasn't the issue she came with. She came with extreme OCD, insomnia, panic disorder,
Mm,
emetophobia was a biggie for her, and issues around gender, all anxiety based. So she was a vulnerable young woman, an incredible young woman, and is now done incredibly well in life, despite that person's attempt to do that to her. That's evil. That's
that's
evil.
pure evil. That's
And it was
pure
and
evil.
it was said with such intent. But not only that, everything he said was absolutely not provable. It was a lie. It was just a vile, vicious lie about every aspect of what he said. But how do you separate that from somebody who's on social media saying it's going to take 14 to 17 years for you to recover? You can't. Misinformation is misinformation at any level. It doesn't matter whether it's a white lie or the purest, darkest black lie. It's still a lie. And whether and also there's lying. You can. Sorry, that's my phone ringing in the background.
That's
You
all
you
right.
you can lie by not revealing truths too. So the fact that you don't say something to somebody that needs to be said is also a lie, and there's a lot of that
Yes.
going on as well. You know, the controlling of information. It's evil, Sam, and I can't be party to it because I wouldn't sleep. I couldn't live with myself if I did any of that stuff. It's
Uh,
horrific.
uh, Absolutely the same, and again, just doubles down on the on what we've both said, that that is why we are so consistent and passionate with our responses and our comments on these various things, because
Totally.
it's not something that and I know it's not something, of course it's not something you're willing to let go, and it's not something I'm willing to let go. If I see something like that, I can't let that go, because I put
I can't.
I immediately put myself in the headspace of someone who used to suffer and who used to scour the internet and
Mm.
spend, you said about the person lying in bed at 4 o'clock in the morning scrolling TikTok video. That was me. That
Yeah.
was absolutely me. I was that
Yeah.
person who would just lie there and just look for some sort of salvation of any kind. I was
Mm.
so beyond desperate,
Yeah. Yeah.
because that's what we do. We seek safety. That's our instinct as human beings. It's the
Absolutely
mechanism.
right.
That's what we're built
And
for.
also, and you and I have discussed that we've got a very similar mindset with this, in that we are fighters for justice. You know,
Totally.
just because somebody says that you're something that they want you to be doesn't make you that thing. And the fact
Yeah.
that they try to project that onto you doesn't make. Yeah, I know I wake up every day with good intention, and I know that I go to bed every night believing that I've carried out that good intention.
Yes.
I've never meaningfully or in any way remotely on purpose gone out to harm somebody or to say something harmful or do something harmful. To my knowledge, I don't think I've ever hurt anybody, full stop. It would destroy me if I thought I'd hurt somebody, really, unless they attack me. When
Yes.
somebody
Unless it's
goes,
justified.
if somebody's coming at me swinging, I'm not, I'm no shrinking violet. And if somebody hurts my
Yeah.
kids and my wife, yeah, I'm there. What kind of man would I be not to, or to protect a friend? Absolutely, I'm there. But I don't intentionally look for trouble or look for, and I certainly believe, I know for a fact that what we do works and it's scientific and it is absolutely how we say it is. So that's absolutely fine. I know it's scientific and it works. So as long as I stick to the rules of what we do, the rules of engagement for this thing we do, which I
Yes.
believe I know to be recovery, then
Yes.
we can't go far wrong. If somebody finds fault in that, that's absolutely fine. Let's discuss it. But if
Yeah.
somebody just
Challenge it.
says,
Yep.
you're a liar, you're a fraud, you're a charlatan, well, no, I'm not. Prove it. Nobody ever has.
Yeah, and then it's just, well, the DSM-5. It's always the same. You could write the script every time we comment on one of these accounts, or on a video. It's the same argument every single
Mm.
time.
Oh, it is.
Well, according to the such and such, it's like, oh God. And again, like I said, use your own mind, honestly. And actually, the irony is, as we've said, half of these people, if not all of them, are sufferers themselves. So actually, by default, you go, you are the people who have the high creative intellects, who have the ability to cut through this bullshit like we are doing.
Yeah, to
You
the truth.
you have the minds that I talked about earlier, right at the beginning of the podcast. Those problem solving, high imagination minds that are able to see beyond that rubbish and see the logic, and not just
Absolutely
fall in
right.
line with the bullshit rhetoric that you're being fed to keep everything just ticking along nicely.
Mm.
Challenge that, and ask yourself, why do I still have OCD? Why do I still have these horrendous intrusive thoughts? Why do I still feel really anxious about this? Why? Maybe because you're not recovered. Maybe because the thing that you're doing doesn't work. And so maybe
Yes,
when someone comes along and challenges you, of course you're going to be defensive about it, because no one likes to be challenged. Like you said earlier, if they've spent lots of money training and years of their life training for something, whether it's the right thing or the wrong thing, they're going to defend it because they
of
feel
course they are.
they've put their commitment into it, and that's completely understandable. But also, maybe fall on your sword
Mm.
and think to yourself, this is bigger than I am. This is
Yeah,
bigger than me.
yeah. As you're talking there about, these people that sort of pull out the acronyms and the references,
Yeah,
it's my,
every time.
I'll make a statement that I know to be absolutely factually true about something. And like you say, they'll say, yes, but on line blah, 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 index 37, and it says that. Yeah, I don't care what it says. The truth is that's wrong.
Yes.
This isn't a debate. This isn't a who can come up with the best data. It's this exists, this doesn't. Shut it. And stop damaging people with your belief that this is right, because it's only a belief. I'll give you an example of the treachery of these people. I think I might have mentioned this before, but there was a professor of psychology actually, who actually sort of analysed the program and came up with the fact that it wasn't novel. It wasn't novel.
Yes.
And then came up with the fact that the bottom line was, don't get me wrong. It was said in this kind of, don't get me wrong. If this thing that Charles Lyndon sells was £3, I'd be recommending it. And there's only one conclusion from that statement, is that it isn't about the content. It was purely about what people are asked to pay for it. Now, bear in mind, our full program is, let's say it's 170 quid, 150 quid, whatever it is. For the full program, 12 months of me and you and Ben and anybody else in the webinars every Monday, sat there waiting for you to come in and ask your questions. So even if you just look at that, that's over 80 hours of direct one-on-one support and information, right?
And community and
Yeah. Now, if that was CBT, that would be, let's call it 80 hours at £60 an hour, and the average price in Britain. So we're talking what, 4,800 quid's worth of
4,800
therapy.
quid.
Now then, so on top of that, you look at the amount of information you get, the community, the videos about anything from insomnia to an achy butt. There's everything in there you could possibly every question you could ever have answered is answered. On top of that, there's things for grief, loss, change. There's things for stress. There's things for every manner of physical manifestation of anxiety and fear disorders. On top of that, you can message at any time, get an answer. So that's kind of consistency of counseling, let's call it, if you want to call it that, but it's certainly coaching. Now, if that costs £3, he'd be recommending it. But the fact that it's 150 quid, he won't recommend it. Bearing in mind, the same human being charges, I believe, around £150 an hour for his unbelievable, per session, for his CBT-based practice. And on top of that, he's got a book available, openly available, about what he does, that he wrote, about something that somebody else invented, that I think you can't get a copy of as a paperback for under 150 quid. Right? So, right? Because it's because it's an academic book, written by an academic.
Yes, of course.
The information is somebody else's, but he's put the words into the bookie and sold the bookie for 150 quid, right? To unsuspecting people that want to learn what he does, which doesn't work. And what I'm saying in all of this is, my experience is that this person pokes at me, and has poked at me for many, many years. He's a charlatan, he's this, and that. And you just go, so where are your testimonials then, mate? And it's, we don't get testimonials because we're psychologists. No, you don't get testimonials because nobody wants to give you one. Because there's no place you could wait 1,000 years and not get one, except for, and I've seen these. I went to his sessions and he had really nice tea and biscuits, that kind of thing. In fact, there was a clinic in London. I told them to take their testimonials page down because it was just full of that. The staff are really nice. Their cafe serves really lovely coffee. That's not a testimonial. A testimonial is, I came, I'm cured.
Yeah, that's like going to putting it as an actor. That's like, every actor knows if someone comes to watch a show and all they can tell you at the end of the show, you come out the stage door and you say, oh, what, like you've got friends or family and you say, what did you think? And they go, oh, yeah, the costumes were nice.
Yeah.
Fuck.
At that moment, you're destroyed.
That's it. I'm done. Yeah. Right. Close the show. I'm done. That's it.
Yeah.
I'll bring my agent. Get me off this. It's
Yeah.
unreal, Charles. It's
It
absolutely
is
unreal,
unreal.
and
It is unreal.
it's crazy. It's crazy, and the well, should we talk briefly about the we won't name names because it's not, there's no point, but the guy who quite openly came at us attacking a couple of
Yeah.
weeks ago and
Yeah.
trying to discredit everything.
Yeah.
I know you've had
A known person.
yes, and I know you've had history with him, and it's, he's got a website, and you look into this website, and frankly, again, it's full of nonsense. It's full of rubbish. It's no different from anything that anyone else is peddling.
No.
And it's quite laughable, and it's quite pathetic that people like this try and, it's quite obvious. This is what I find hilarious about it. It's quite obvious that, well, I'd say that it's quite reminiscent of anxious behavior, Charles, wouldn't you? That this attacking behavior is quite anxious behavior, in the sense that they don't like something because it threatens them.
Yes.
And they think they genuinely believe it's a threat, when actually
Yes.
it's not a threat in any way. In fact, as you've said, Charles, if
They should be embracing it.
They should be embracing it. And if one of these therapists gave us a message and said, "Look, guys, actually, I've noticed, and I've realised that what I've been doing hasn't been working, and I'd really love to come and train as
Right.
a Linden anxiety recovery coach," we would welcome that with open arms.
Totally. Even the ones that have been evil to me, I would. If those people genuinely came to me and said, "Look, I see the error of my ways. I see now. I see the science. I see that my behaviour wasn't appropriate. Let's put that behind us and let's move forward, because I really think
because
you've
I
got
want to
something
help
here."
people. Yeah, and I want to help people.
They'd never do it, Sam. They haven't got the integrity. They
wouldn't fall on their swords.
they've got God complexes. They're incredible. And the person you're talking about there, I mean, of a number of them, and some of these have been
Yes.
associated with national organisations. Some have been within the
Yes.
NHS. Some have been associated with universities. Some, they always come up with a yes, but and then they start name calling. Is the other thing they do a lot.
Yes, absolutely.
And it's always as something to do with my head. Always. Emperor Ming says
the fact you're bald.
Yeah.
That's now a hate crime, Charles. That's a hate crime now, Charles. So if they do that, you can get them banged up.
Good point. Yeah, I'll take that.
It's now a hate crime.
But Sam, that brings me to an interesting point, because I have made police reports against some of these people. Why have I done that? Because when they bring my kids and my wife into it, I'm going to the police.
Of course.
When they threaten that something's going to happen to you, when you get a threat to kill or a death threat, that's a custodial sentence. That's a serious crime. And so, yes, I do make police reports. When somebody says things that aren't true of you, if they were true of you, it would mean that I was a criminal. That is not just a hate crime. It is defamation. It is
libel. Yeah.
Yes. And so, yes, I will make a police report about you. The fact that you got away with it because the police are too lazy to do anything about it is irrelevant. The point is the report was made. And the report was made based on fact and evidence presented, actual evidence. These people go as far as to create email accounts with my names on them and send people emails from those email accounts and say that it was me that sent the email. They will phone somebody and record a phone call, not hearing my voice because it's not my voice, and pretend that it's me on the other end of the phone threatening them. And they'll record it and they'll put it somewhere for people to say and say, "This is Charles Linder threatening me." But these same people have been to my house with cameras and taken photographs of me through my fence. They've screamed at me down the Ring doorbell. These people are Looney Tunes, and yet they point the finger at me. But the good news in all of this is that they do it for a reason, because they leave the morons alone. The ones doing the tapping, they don't go after them. The ones doing the tree hugging or the bloody dancing around a fire at midnight, they don't go after them, because that's not harming they're going after the person who actually harms their reputation, because I say,
no, exactly.
I prove that what they're doing is wrong and I do it better than them. And I'm not being egotistical about this. 30 years of doing this and thousands of clients saying this is behind what I'm telling you. They haven't got that. And that's where this comes from. It comes from a deep evil wanting to literally wipe me away so that they can continue their pathway of nonsense and benefit from it and profit from it. and I ain't going to be swept aside. It's as simple as that.
No, damn right. And it's, these people, to people listening, these are the people who are in the high up places who are in charge of helping you.
Yes.
These are the people making death threats and, abusing and coercing and manipulating and doing all of this psychopathic behavior.
Yeah.
Quite psychotic behavior.
And
These are
collecting henchmen to do it with them. Yeah.
Yeah. These are the people who have been qualified and given the qualifications to sit in the office whilst you sit on the proverbial chaise lounge with your cup of tea, and they tell you to tap your face and move your eyes around a bit and smile, go walk around the fields of England smiling your ass off, because that's what's going to cure you.
It is actual lunacy. It is lunacy.
Absolutely insane.
But they're pulling people in on this belief train with them, and that's what hurts me so much, is that there are so many people who go, "Oh, he's a wonderful man. How long have you been seeing him? 10 years." And I had a radio interview not long ago, where I gave my perspective on something, and the guy was like, "Oh, wow, yeah, crikey, that's absolutely fantastic. I never thought of it like that." And then at the end of this conversation, where I literally convinced him that what was being said about these conditions was actually wrong, and that, and he said, "Yeah, you're absolutely right. I've had this happen a lot. Yeah, you're absolutely right." And then at the end of it said, "Well, of course, I've been having therapy with my counsellor for whatever it was, 5-10 years. He's become a friend of mine because I suffer from anxiety." And that thing they do in advertising where they say, "But there are other brands of soup. But there are other, solutions to this." And he basically then flipped it. And although what I'd said countered everything that he believed about what this bloke had been telling him, he still at the end of it said, "I've been seeing this guy for 5 years. He's a really nice guy. He's become quite a good friend, and he's a fantastic counsellor. And, there are things that psychology and psychotherapy and CBT can help for." Bang, phone went down on me without my ability to, I did no opportunity to respond whatsoever. So basically, I said everything that was right. He agreed with me, but at the end of it, realised, "Oh shit, I've just undermined my therapist. I better rescue this." And then gone completely back to the therapist and basically said to people, "But if you want real answers, go to a therapist." Mind blowing, shocking.
Unbelievable, isn't it?
It is unbelievable. But what do you do?
I'm going to say it now, guys. Whether you have anxiety or not, no one needs a therapist. You don't need one. Well, it's useful to talk things through. It's useful sometimes to make sense of things. Make sense of what? Make sense of what? Talk what through? Guess what? You have people in your life to do that with. It's called your friends. It's called your family. But, that's the point of having relationships. That's the importance of having relationships and having friendships, is so you go through a breakup and you ring your mate up and you go, "Mate, I'm feeling a bit low. I've just split up with my partner. I really want to talk it through." Of course, man, come round, have a chat. You have a chat, you put things in perspective, you go through the grieving process of it, you move on, you meet someone else. Great. Why do I need to spend £100 a week to go and sit in some office to tell me, well, maybe the relationship ended because of the relationship with your mother wasn't very good as a child? What? I don't need that. No one needs it.
Humans are set up to forget and move on. That is the nature of human. Because if that didn't happen, Sam, can you imagine how many cave people would have died of depression in a deep, dark cave, never come out because they saw a tiger one day? It's nonsense. We're set up to be very resilient and to move on and to change our environments and to find new partners and to just adapt and problem solve. That's the way the human should be. All of these things are designed to weaken us. Well, you must talk to somebody about that. Really? So talking's great. If you're trying to forget something, how is talking going to help? In grief, for example, if you constantly talk about granddad for the next 10 years, you're never, ever going to forget the emotional response to the loss of granddad. You're always attaching the thought to the emotion. The grieving process happens because over that period of time, you detach the conscious memory of the person that you've lost from the emotional response. That's how it works. You can't hold on to both because you're just going to bloody sad, and more than that, in some cases, it leads to disastrous circumstances. So talking isn't always good. A problem shared is a problem halved. Not always. No, it's not actually. It depends on the nature of the problem. It depends on the nature of the conversation you have. It depends on the nature of the person that you're having the conversation, you're having.
Yes.
But it depends on so many factors that you just can't generally say talking is good. You know, they use this a lot for obviously for, depressive conditions. Um, but, talking is good. If you feel desperate to the point of total desperation, where you potentially could do something to harm yourself or harm somebody else, then of course, asking somebody to help you to prevent doing that is the sensible thing to do. To say, Sam, listen, I'm having a really bad day. I'm thinking of going out and getting absolutely paralytic. Um, you'd probably be around the house in 10 minutes and say, Charles, this probably isn't the best course of action. Let's think of a
Yeah.
different way of dealing with it. So
Yeah.
communicating your dilemma or your distress, yes, is good. But sitting hour after hour and after hour talking about it with a therapist you don't even know, they're not your friend. It's
But
not.
that's how they sell it, though, isn't it? That well, it's not enough to talk to a friend. You have to talk to a professional. So what? What are you talking about? That's absolutely ridiculous. That's
No, it's not.
absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah, it is ridiculous.
It's
But but
insanity.
but that's not to say that some people don't get benefit from that, because, and I'm not going down the psychology route here and saying, yeah, but there are exceptions. No, there are times that some people do get something from it, but it
Mm.
isn't what they think they're getting. And
No, exactly.
therein lies the problem. You know, they feel slightly reassured, therefore it's working. They feel slightly less anxious, therefore it's working. You know, there are a lot of things that can make you feel less anxious. I saw something interesting the other day. I think I might have mentioned this before.
Mm.
There was a trial done on CBT, and I looked deeply into it, and I found that they weren't trialing CBT at all. It was CBT plus relaxation plus EMDR plus something else.
Yes, you told me
So
about this.
so where'd you draw the line? Do you just add everything into it and call it CBT? Where do you actually make the boundaries for this test? Because if you're testing CBT, then you test that in isolation. If you're testing EMDR, you test that in isolation. You don't clump it all together, call it CBT, and hope nobody notices. It's lunacy, because
It is.
you're not getting data. You're just getting, well, misinformation, basically. It can never become data, and it certainly can't become the gold standard or, of evidence-based practice, because there's no evidence in that, because you don't know what it was that was working, if anything was working at all, because there's so much clustered into it that you can't, you know, it's the whole thing is so muddy and scary. But again, I come back to the fact, and you keep making it very, very well, there is only one thing that works. And if you do that one thing, it will work, and you've got to make it work. And if you find it difficult to make it work, you've got to get somebody to help you to make it work. But it will work. I know somebody who's just passed their driving test after 7 times,
Wow.
seven tests. It
Yeah.
wasn't that they couldn't drive. It's just that they weren't at the point where they could pass the test. And,
Yes.
and, and so it's about consistency and doing the right thing over and over again until it works, but not giving up and doing something else because it hasn't worked for you yet. Because the magic word in that is yet. It will
Well,
work.
exactly. And it's the same with anything. I'm an avid golfer, and that sport is so based upon practice
Mm,
and precision and making sure
mm,
your backswing's correct and making sure
mm.
your grip's correct. It'd be very easy to go to the golf course or the driving range, have a really bad round or have a really bad session and go, oh, fuck this, I'm not doing it. It's too
Yeah,
hard, it's
don't you?
ridiculous. Why do that? Why not go back and go, right, okay, what did I miss last time? Maybe I'm going to take a pic. I'm going to film my backswing so I can see what's going on and actually commit to something.
Yeah,
People are afraid to commit to things. But I,
right.
I, I think modern therapy, well, not just modern therapy, but therapy in general, it's made people feel quite fragile and incapable
Mm,
of committing to something, because the
yeah.
idea of committing to I can't commit to, I'm too unwell to commit.
Mm,
I'll do it when I feel better.
mm.
And we always make the point, you're going to start feeling better when you start doing this.
Doing what
You're
it
going to
is. Yeah,
start feeling better. So don't
totally.
wait, because you're going to be waiting a bloody long time.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
that's the irony.
You're just
Um,
putting it off,
Absolutely.
when it's just around the corner. To reiterate,
Yes.
the passion that we have for creating recovery is what drives
Yeah,
us. Don't see
totally.
this as a slagging off session about the things you've tried. It's
No,
not your fault that those
no,
things
it's
didn't
not.
work. It's
No,
the
it's
fault
not.
of the people who presented it as a solution, not
Yep.
yours. You know, don't
Yep.
feel silly. Don't feel, you know, like you've made a mistake. You haven't. And moreover, some of those people that are giving you those solutions or those treatments haven't made a mistake because they think they're doing the right thing. You know, don't hold them to account because you think they've been evil in their intent. That is not necessarily true. It can be true, but it's not
No, can be
necessarily true.
true. Yep.
But
Yep.
you know, and the truth does hurt, and this is the truth. And does it require some effort? Yes. Does it require some focus? Yes. But I'll tell you now, it is a darn sight easier to live your life non-anxious and
God, yeah.
than it is to live it anxious. And the effort you're putting into your life right now, regardless of what level you suffer at, is 1,000 times more than the efforts you need to put into a recovery process. So please be reassured by that, because the truth is you can recover quickly and fully.
It's a really great point to make. Really great point to make. But let's debunk a myth. I've seen this quite a lot. I came across a particular website which stated that the reason people are anxious is because it's an ancestral thing, and it's to do with we need anxious people. We need sensitive, fragile people to teach non-sensitive, non-fragile people to be more sensitive. That's why we have this. So the myth is people who have anxiety and people who can develop anxiety are sensitive and fragile.
Because they serve a purpose for other people.
Apparently, so according to this website, according to this psychologist, for a very well-known celebrity website,
So this
apparently,
psychologist thinks that there's a script somewhere written by somebody or something,
yeah, the
that
Almighty, the Creator, who
the
knows?
creator, yeah, who puts certain people in certain places to perform certain tasks for those people that can't perform those tasks. I mean, it sounds very well. I don't know what it sounds. It sounds like somebody has been taking too many of those funny pills, because it. I mean, there isn't the only grand plan was perpetuation of the species, as far as I can see. You know, we are designed to be born, to live, to thrive, to be well, to eat, to shit,
Yep.
and to die. And in the middle
Yeah.
of all that, somewhere we procreate to carry on the species. As far as I can tell, that is what it is. Now, whether you believe in a deity or not, whether you're spiritual or not in any way, is kind of irrelevant at this point, because that is the process of life. You can't get away from it. That is the biological process of life. So to think that there's some kind of control room somewhere, presumably in the sky somewhere, where somebody's actually steering you to what you were put on Earth to do, so that you go and seek out all of these meek people and somehow incentivize them to be not so meek, seems to
Mm.
me to be an overreach. But maybe I'm wrong.
Well, and that, but then this person went on to make a point that, you know, you have people in society like doctors and runners and people like that who are, you know, resilient and all of this sort of stuff, and I was thinking, well, actually, no, those are the people who are prone to anxiety, you know, problem solvers, and you know, if you've got someone performing brain surgery, you can bet your ass that person's got high creative intellect. You know,
Yeah,
it's you
it's
know,
it's the strangest thing,
it's
isn't it? It's
yeah, it's got
psychobabble, isn't it?
nothing. It is, and it's got nothing. Being anxious has got nothing to do with how sensitive you are and how fragile you are. I wouldn't class us as fragile people, Charles. I would never class myself as a fragile person. I'm very happy to deal with confrontation if I have to.
Of
I'm very
course,
happy to have a debate with someone, and if it gets heated, I'm very happy to
face it
be
head on.
to face that. I you know,
We're very
the idea
empathetic,
that
though. I mean, we're not sensitive, but we are very kind. I mean, I would say
well,
that of myself
completely.
without doubt. Yeah.
Oh yeah, okay, maybe that's right. I'd say I am sensitive to, but I'm not oversensitive. I'm not
No.
inappropriately sensitive, because I think that is actually, as we've discussed, is
No.
at our detriment. That's not coming
Yeah.
from a place of, oh God, you know, that toxic masculinity thing of, oh, it's so, you know, just
Yeah.
rub some dirt on it. It's
Yeah.
not. That's not the place that I'm coming from. And I know that's not the place that you're
No.
coming from. It's more coming from a place of, guys, if we oversensitize everything, it's going to be our detriment. It's not
It
good for
is.
us. It's not good for us.
Well, it's that thing that
Uh,
I said before, about good times create weak men.
yes,
Weak men create bad times create strong men create good times, create weak men, and so on. There's this cycle, and we're going through one of those very much so at the moment, where and I'm not talking about men as men. I'm talking about mankind in that. You know,
species. Yeah,
yeah, but we've got to grow some as a species because it's going to be very soon that nobody can do anything, and then everything falls apart.
yes,
That's where it's leading to very
yep,
incapable people. And regardless of whether, oh, well, my son, I love him because he's just so sensitive and he likes puppies and cats and he loves to play out in the daisies and make daisy chains. That's all very well. But if everybody was like that, and it seems to be that that's the way it's going, who's going to build the
mm,
buildings or put out the fires or fight the wars or build
yep,
the dams you know,
yes,
this is the problem. We are, as a society, we're becoming so dependent on, well, so immersed in social media and so dependent on science that
mm,
actually we're ignoring the fact that we need particular types of people to carry out particular roles. And when
yes,
those particular people disappear, that role isn't just going to disappear. The thing that they built, created, and maintained is going to disappear too. So we've got to be very careful about the world. If we change the world, we've got to be very careful how we do that. And we're not being careful about it. People aren't giving it enough thought. Um, yeah, it worries
yeah.
me.
And I frankly, I find it insulting to the implication that someone with anxiety is overly sensitive and fragile and just this kind of leaf in the wind. How dare you? That's absolutely not the
It's the
truth at
opposite.
all. It's the absolute opposite. The what someone with anxiety will tell you when you are in the height of anxiety and you're suffering panic attack after panic attack after panic attack every single day, that takes some resilience. That really does.
It
That
does.
takes some damn resilience. So
And
to
and it
say,
not
"Oh,
only
you're just
takes the
fragile."
resilience, but the source of that is in a superpower. And people overuse this. Oh, I see my ADHD as a superpower. I see my autism as the superpower. I see my disability as a superpower. Yes, that's great. But when you have a superpower, a true superpower, and it's abusing you because of its strength, that's what anxiety is. That's what fear disorders are. They're an abuse of a superpower because the
Yes,
superpower is the thing that is creating the disorder. But when it's focused on and repurposed on the order, you become almost unstoppable intellectually, physically, in every way. You become the best version of yourself, and that means
absolutely.
that you actually become better than a lot of other people because you are more intellectually capable, more physically capable, and certainly more capable from a creative perspective, which is about
Mm.
problem solving. So you're the asset that every company wants. It's just that at the moment you're being abused by your disorder. But it
It's
is,
channeling. It's going down
yeah,
the wrong channel. Yeah, yeah,
correct, absolutely right. So but that shows the misapprehensions about these conditions. You
yeah.
know, I've
The
never been
ignorance of it.
frail. Even when I was having panic attacks, anxiety in my teens, I was still playing rugby. I was playing games where I come off the field and need stitches inside my mouth or have this done or my nose straightened. I've broken it 16 times. I mean, it only bends one way. That's not a shrinking violet. That's somebody who isn't scared. That's somebody who has anxiety. It's very
Mm.
different. And then I'll be off the field painting, and I wanted to be an architect. I was interested in becoming, a doctor. There were things I wanted to do in my life, and the only thing that inhibited me was my anxiety.
Yeah.
Now
Well,
it
I'm the
doesn't
same, Charles.
inhibit me.
I was the same child. I was still stepping on stage every night. I was still
Mm,
walking. I was still stepping out in front of thousands of people,
mhm.
doing plays and and playing shows and doing that sort of thing. So yeah, I find it really insulting, and actually, it's unhelpful. It goes beyond just being, oh, that's insulting. That's not very nice. It actually again furthers the idea that that you're ill. Oh, you're
Mm,
fragile. We need to
mm,
treat you as you're a
mm.
vulnerable person. We need to treat you as such. No, you don't. Stop. I always say, I've said to a few clients now. I say to them, you'll get to a point in this process where you'll no longer talk like an anxious person, and therefore people will stop talking to you like you're an anxious person. Because
Correct.
I used to get it. I used to get it all the time. People would be like, "Are you okay? are you all right? Sam, are you like, Sam, let's talk. How are you doing? And, and I would buy into it. Oh God, yeah, no, it's been tough. It's been really tough. And actually, I did get to a point, obviously, when I started doing this method, I got to a point where I'm like, oh, stop, I'm fine. Stop bloody
Yeah.
asking me. Stop
Yeah.
asking me. Let's do something else.
But that's how therapy is set up. It's set up to pull emotion out of you so that
Yeah.
you have to confront the emotion every time you go. And
Yeah.
so, but by doing that, you could walk in looking and feeling absolutely fine. And within 3 minutes, you're feeling absolutely horrific because the person has basically said, how you doing? And you go, I'm all right. Well, are you really? Well, I was until you said that. Now I'm thinking I'm not so much.
Yeah.
Well,
Now I'm
why is
worrying
that
about
then?
how, yeah,
Yeah.
now I'm worrying
Yeah.
about how I'm sat on the chair and,
Yeah. Jesus. Honestly,
and
it,
it
it, it
links
beggars
back.
belief. It beggars belief. Um,
It does.
but yeah, it is the nature of the beast, and I just hope that
It
people
is.
listen and understand that this is
Yeah,
passion
me
and
too.
it's passion for recovery, and that they don't have to sit back and let this happen to them. Can take very fast control, but they have to do so scientifically.
Yeah, it's passion and it's love. The reason that we started this whole thing, this whole podcast, was because we wanted to get this out to more people, because we both know how horrible it is to
Mm,
be a sufferer.
yeah,
And quite frankly, I'm sick of having conversations with people and they tell me how difficult they're finding their mental health
yeah,
and anxiety. I'm
yeah.
so sick and tired of it, when I know full well that it can be dealt with very efficiently and swiftly and definitively. And there's
It's
still people I
frustrating.
talk to. It's so frustrating. People I talk to and who, oh, I'm still, I've been with my therapist now for X amount of months or years, or I'm on this medication and I've moved on to this medication and I'm feeling it better because I've moved on to this medication. And it's like, oh God, please, it's so frustrating. So everything that we say is always with passion and love and a
Totally.
want to help as many people as possible.
Mm,
Simple
absolutely.
as that.
And I
Simple
know
as
that,
that.
what we've just said over this last period of time we've been talking, I'm not sure how long it is, hour and three
Yeah.
quarters. You know,
Yeah.
I know that those people that we've talked about tonight will still come and watch this
Of course
and
they
come
will.
up with some, the most ridiculous justification of their nastiness,
Yeah.
um,
Of course they will.
because that's the nature of the beast. But there is no justification of preventing people getting what would help them, you know, or could help them even. It is mind blowing, but it is the
It is.
nature of the beast, and you have to work with what you've got, and we just keep working and moving forward and doing
Keep
as much
pushing.
as we can. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
That's it. Well,
Well,
thank you. Thank you for that, Charlie.
no, thank you.
That's been some wonderful therapy right there.
Well, it's nice to be able to air your views freely, and for people
It is.
for
It
people to have the
is. Yeah.
opportunity to, and we're not expecting people to last through it all. They can turn
Nope.
us off at any point if they find us
Absolutely.
offensive. Then good luck. Move on. That's fine. But if you
Yeah.
need us, you know where to find us.
Absolutely. And as ever, guys, please, like, subscribe, share, tell people about us. We want to try and, as we said, we want to try and get this out to as many people as possible. And that
We
and
do.
that comes from you listening and sharing it. So if you know someone who's suffering and would benefit, then please, yeah, get this out to them. And obviously visit our
Absolutely.
website for more
Yep.
information.
Yep.
We've just updated all the websites, and it's, there's so much information on there.
Yeah.
And there's
Absolutely.
so much support on there. So please just check us out and
Ask
yeah,
questions.
ask the questions, challenge us as ever.
But it's been a good
Yeah,
opportunity to air some views that we don't often have the opportunity to air as freely. It's been brilliant.
absolutely. Brilliant. Well,
Cool.
thank you, Charles, and I'll see you at the next one.
Yeah, absolutely. Take care, folks. Be
Lovely.
good.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for joining us on the Mental Stealth podcast. Don't forget to like, subscribe and share, and we'll see you at the next episode.